Final Stop Brazil, Book 2, Life After Hell, Chapter 53, Sampa, my little faithful companion. One disappointment followed another. The Bahia men were absolutely no good. This I had to realize now after countless dates of phone calls that did not even have a date following. One was more mendacious than the other. As for the marriage, it was completely at standstill. I could not reach the Cartório. It was like bewitched. And Mr. Sergio didn't call me. Why he didn't, I knew not, and couldn't find out either, because I could no longer take time off. I was still not entitled for holidays, and I had to use the few days my boss tolerated for going to the CAB to sign my probation. Neither Lucia nor Fabiano gave me support, even though it would have been easy to walk the 2 minutes from the restaurant to the registry office and asked whether the judge gave me permission to marry or not. Of Fabiano, I saw and heard nothing. He was busy practically 24 hours in his internet cafe. Lucia had either visitors or slept when I went to see her. Finally, I gave her assistant 20 reais for Fabiano as expenses for the lost day in the registry office and a note for Mr. Sergio with a request to call me. Neither I got a call from him or from Fabiano, and not even knew whether he received the money. I suspected that he didn't. I resigned and didn't even want to get married anymore. I was simply becoming careless. No way I could do anything myself after work, for until I came out of this dump, Pituaçu, it was too late. In fact, I was annoyed because I risked my life every day to get across the wide street to the bus stop. Both of these traffic lights for this 4-lane crossing did not work or were generally permanently green for the motorists, while the pedestrian at the crossing, with traffic lights being permanently red, had little chance to cross the street, since the drivers didn't respect pedestrians in any way. Instead, put their foot down even more on the accelerator, with the result that sometimes I waited half an hour to cross the street. Thankfully, I took as often as possible Fabio's offer for a Mitfahrgelegenheit, a lift in German, a new word he learned and now permanently used. He brought me to the other side of the road with his car and dropped me at the bus stop. That way I avoided the dangerous crossing of the road. There was still very much to be done here to make it an appropriate vacation destination. From the perspective of a tourist, I would not return after one visit. All is completely disorganized. There was virtually no one who helped foreign tourists, because hardly anyone speaks English, let alone other languages. The beaches are dirty and unkempt. Trash is carelessly thrown around, not to mention the danger here. Tourists run permanently danger to be robbed. How clean, peaceful, and beautiful it was, however, at that time in Fortaleza. I was just angry about my job with Julia, who had sent me to this damn Salvador because it was supposedly so beautiful here. About everything. I was in a dead end, from which I no longer came out. I had no prospect of more salary in my job. To my own astonishment, I was already one of the better off in this hotel because of my language skills. The receptionists were working a full-time job for 500 reais a month, and Murillo, who was doing the same work as me, was paid only a minimal salary. Another job I could not get without a working permit. It was just frustrating to know that I could earn according to my education, my experience, and my language skills up to 4,000 reais, however, worked for just under 1,000 and could get nowhere. Not even a computer I could buy for my secondary activities of translation and language teaching, or simply get in contact with other people online because I had plenty of them. Even with my book, I got no further in any way. If I went on the weekends to Italva instead of going to the beach to get a little ahead, it never took a long time until I heard from Icaro, "Now I need the computer." Finally, I gave it all up, not just the writing of my book. even all the translation work. Without computer, it made no sense, and a purchase on monthly installments I could forget. So I was sitting alone in my house, watched sometimes the miserable television program, and took care of Sampa. But this could not help that I was suffering from severe depression. Sampa gave me initially only joy. He had become a magnificent and very healthy dog, and even looked very pretty now. My neighbors admired me for nursing him back to health, and turned this wild street dog into a well-behaved house dog. Sampa sometimes strained my patience, because if I was at home, he demanded my undivided attention, wanted to play with me, brought me his ball or his other toys, so I threw them so he could bring them back. Phone calls were becoming impossible, or visits I couldn't even think of. He then started barking full of jealousy, or even worse, when he was suddenly very quiet. Then, namely, he was taking something to pieces. So I spent most of the time with him outside during the weekends in the garden, throwing balls, and trained him as far as he listened to many commands. In fact, he had a good life, because while I was working, he was in the giant garden and could romp and play. I was surprised, however, why his belly was increasing to such a size that it somehow didn't fit in relation to the rest of his body at all, until I discovered the solution to the riddle. He crawled underneath the fence to the neighbor premises and stole, full of disrespect, the food of the Rottweiler. I was seriously worried that he would one day himself become the breakfast of this Rottweiler, if he wouldn't stop this bad habit. Since Pirata's wife had spread rat poison against the numerous rats that were in the garden, I had to put Sampa under house arrest. The result of this was that my neighbor approached me one day and asked what I did with Sampa while I was working. He has to stay in the house or on the porch because of the rat poison. Why? Well, because during the day he's walking around on the roof. I've been wondering a little. I heard of the neighbor. What? My dog on the roof? When I told this to my colleagues, they couldn't stop laughing. In fact, Sampa appeared to be very clever in climbing, and jumped from the porch to the roof edge, then climbed directly to the next roof, and walked up to the roofs of neighboring houses. Thus, he probably was about the only dog in Salvador exercising his walks on roofs. My neighbor of the other side even risked his own life when he discovered Sampa up on the roof by climbing up there to rescue him. When I heard that story, I told him, "For heaven's sake, don't do that. You slip off and break your neck. Leave that dog up there. He knows what he's doing." Finally, he himself jumps on the porch to get to the roof, and in the afternoon he is back in the house to play the innocent, so I may not find out. He knows exactly that he is not allowed to do this. Finally, I was glad when the rat poison disappeared, even though the rats remained, but Sampa could at least be back running around in the garden. He was sometimes really a pain and had his own head, but all I taught him, he learned very quickly, gave paws, and walked by my side. I taught him to avoid cars, so he would not be run over. The result was I could walk with him without a leash, and when I gave the command, "Cara," car, he dropped down immediately at the roadside. All the residents of the street watched in admiration what I had made of this dog, but Sampa was still a puppy and sometimes behaved in such a way, so he had to learn from his mistakes. One evening I was on the phone again with one of many admirers. Sampa barked jealously that I did not understand a single word spoken. I grabbed him by the neck, put him unceremoniously on the porch, and closed the door. Defiant and angry, he tried again to jump on the roof and slipped. The next moment I heard a terrible shriek. The phone call was over, and I rushed to the porch, where Sampa, of course, wasn't anymore. When I looked down, I only caught a glimpse of him just as he ran around the corner. Well, at least he was alive. I rushed down the stairs, opened the front door, where my Sampa was sitting in deplorable condition, shaking and trembling. For 2 long days I had a good dear and very quiet lap dog. Shortly after I had moved into the house in Itinga, Tanya had lost one of the rechargeable batteries of my digital camera. I was very angry because these batteries are very expensive and for me not to purchase so easy. Therefore, she had given me the 2 batteries of her broken camera. We only used to save the photos from my memory card directly onto the computer. Since the cable for my camera had been lost with all my other things in Spain, I could actually do nothing with my camera, and there was little chance to buy this cable again. In return, I lent her my camera whenever she needed it. Although we hardly saw each other anymore, Tanya called me the morning before the show of Pichotti and warbled sweetly into the phone, asking to borrow the camera. Her father was visiting and she wanted to take pictures. Logically, I did not give it to her this day. Tanya took it very bad. How much I was feeling a little later when she sent the message through Marcio that she reclaimed her batteries. I couldn't see a point at all in this and let Marcio know that he could get back 1 battery but not 2, since Tanya had lost my battery. In response, Tanya herself called me and wanted the return of all the borrowed stuff from me. Went even so far as to threaten me with the police if I stopped them to collect their things. Bitterly, I thought to myself, I should have known. Tanya, Marcio, Joe, Leo, who nowadays barely greeted me whenever we met on the street, all of the same club. How could I have committed this mistake and moved here? But it was no use in pondering over this. I had to find a solution now. The fact was that I hardly possessed anything. So buying a new mattress? No. As long as I didn't know where I would go to, I wouldn't buy anything. Again, I went to search of a room in Itapua. I didn't want an apartment anymore where I had to set up everything myself. I didn't have the money for it, so I was looking for a cheap hotel room, but nothing to find for less than 600 reais a month. However, nothing to be done, and I could not afford in the best of intentions. I couldn't take Sampa with me either. That was another problem. So initially, I bought a cheap foam mattress for 50 reais and then called Tanya and Marcio to pick up their things as soon as possible. 2 weeks now since Sampa was gone. Again, I shed bitter tears over a loss. Night after night, I listened if he was sitting outside the gate, barking or crying. I kept calling his name. Nothing. And once again it started to rain heavily in the evenings and at nights. I knew then he would not return. He hated rain and water in general. Surely he would have come to the house and seek shelter with Mama. All I loved was taken from me or left me. That would probably never change. It was better never to invest emotions again. For my colleagues, it didn't remain hidden how depressed I was, and now I had lost my sense of humor. Since Sampa learned to avoid cars, I was convinced that he was stolen, because he became a very pretty dog. I just hoped that he was treated well at least. It was not always easy with this little savage, but I missed him very much. His joy when I came from work, the moments when we were playing outside with his ball or his rubber bone I had to throw again and again so he could fetch it. The moments after a shower when he was wrapped inside the towel like a baby, snuggled close to me. I remembered that he had developed very good manners when I took him with me everywhere. In this respect he was like Max. I could take him in a restaurant. He lay down obediently under the table. I was not seen or heard any more until I set off, not even begged for food. Only in one respect Sampa was different from Max. He hated the beach, and on our first and last trip there, I borrowed the hope that he would ever get used to it. Like a child, he screamed during the entire beach walk, and Sampa could scream. All eyes were on us when I dragged my Sampa behind me like a stubborn donkey. I remembered how good he was when I found a little black kitten in front of my door and took it into the house, even though he was jealous, but he watched peaceful when I gave the kitten milk and food, and was not even angry when he tried to animate the kitten to play, but instead of playing, he got slapped by velvet paws. He slept peacefully in one chair while the kitten took the other one. In the morning, however, I was woken up by his pitiful crying because the little kitten was lying on the stairs to my bedroom. I wouldn't let him pass.